I call to order the Planning Commission regular session, Cape Charles Civic Center, 500 Tazewell Avenue, January 4th, 2022. Roll call, please.
Grossman present.
Buda present.
D'Amico present.
McCoy present.
Strube present.
Holloway present.
We have everybody present and a quorum. We will now stand for an invocation, a moment of silence, and a pledge followed by the pledge. Join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May be seated. Does anyone object to approval of the consent agenda?
Nope.
No?
Hearing no objection, consent agenda will be taken by unanimous consent. Do we have any comments? Thank you. We have no unfinished business. Go right into new business. Schedule a public hearing for the following conditional use permit application. 520 Randolph Avenue, tax map number 83, Alpha 3-1-580. Kathleen and Todd Glazer for an accessory structure with dwelling unit pursuant to the Cape Charles zoning ordinance 4.2, Boleg J. Would you like to?
Sure. In your staff report, I gave some detail on this. They're seeking to renovate an existing 767 square foot accessory structure to the house to make it into an accessory dwelling unit. Of that structure, they would only make 520 feet in that for the accessory dwelling unit, with the remaining square footage to be used as storage. So we are looking for your authority to schedule this for public hearing at next month's meeting. We did want to alert you in our initial research on this matter. The applicant has applied and received a certificate of appropriateness for the main house at 520 Randolph. So this is a project that has been in the works for some time. As part of this application, she has now indicated, while she's doing the renovation work on the main component of the house at 520 Randolph, she does now wish to reside in this accessory structure while that renovation is underway. As a result of that, we look back because the applicant is the recipient of a conditional use permit for 530 Randolph, right adjacent or next door. And that was issued in July of 2016 by Town Council to operate a bed and breakfast as well as a swimming pool. One of the conditions for a bed and breakfast under our zoning ordinance is requiring the owner live on premise to operate the bed and breakfast. I have spoken to Ms. Glazer about this, and it is her intent, if this is approved for the accessory dwelling unit on the 520 Randolph, that she then would seek to relinquish the conditional use permit for the operation of the bed and breakfast. And so she will get something in writing to that effect so that it would be effective as soon as all the necessary approvals were in place for that to happen. The only correction I have to the staff report is we were seeking to try and do this as a joint meeting with Town Council. I've now heard that Town Council will not be available on February 1. I think it's February 1 is the date of your meeting. But we have made arrangements that they will take it up at their regular meeting in February, as well as take action at that same meeting. And part of this is we're trying to reduce our advertising costs and only have to advertise once, because our budget is really getting blown on advertising. So that is the only correction to the staff report. It will just be you for that public hearing. Town Council will take theirs up at their regular meeting, as well as take action on this as well. So we are seeking your authority today for scheduling the public hearing.
I have a comment on this. If I read it correctly, when she vacates the conditional use permit area and goes back to the main building, she talked about using the CUP portion for short-term rentals.
No, because the CUP as a bed and breakfast will
Yes.
expire There's nothing that precludes her under the zoning ordinance that requires anyone to come forward and seek town permission to operate a short-term rental. There are other components of town code that dictate if it's going to be a short-term rental, it has to be registered for business, has to have the collection and position of transient occupancy tax. But she is moving away from the bed and breakfast operation, which is a clearly defined use in our ordinance.
Right.
And she would be seeking to relinquish that if she obtains approval for this pertinent request before you.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioners have any comments?
I have a question. On the definition of dwelling accessory, it says is a dwelling unit which is an accessory use to a single-family dwelling. Isn't that an empty lot except for the shed?
No, there's a house.
Was I
now
looking
there's-
wrong?
there's proposed
No.
for
Oh, good.
renovation.
There's one in the back.
Okay, let's see.
Well, we're not actually just debating the merits of the application.
No.
I'm just seeking your authority to schedule it for public
Right.
hearing.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
People don't really understand the layout. So I own 530 Randolph, which is the bed and breakfast. The lots where the parking lot is not 520. 520 is the yellow house on the other side of the parking lot.
okay.
Used to be Jackie Ballard's house. That's the house we're renovating.
Okay,
And that's where the accessory structure is.
Got it.
great. Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, great.
And I also have I'd like to comment on something if I can.
That's up to the chairman of the planning commission.
You may comment.
It was brought to my attention that since I have a conditional use permit for the current bed and breakfast that includes a swimming pool, when I vacate that conditional use permit, I will need a new conditional use permit for the swimming pool.
That's not what I told you.
Yes, it is.
No, I said you can vacate the component of the conditional use permit issued by town council for the bed and breakfast and still leave the conditional use permit that was granted for the swimming
Okay.
pool in place.
So, but I have to have a conditional use permit for a swimming pool.
That is what the ordinance requires. Yes.
I went back and read the zoning requirements, which says, quote, neighborhood community centers, swimming pools, tennis courts, and basketball courts.
Those are individual listed uses. They are not run together. the
No,
way
I
you just read
understand that.
Kathy. Sorry.
But in that context, I would interpret that to mean public swimming pools that are alone on a lot, like in Bay Creek or Kings Creek, not to mean a private swimming pool in someone's backyard.
My interpretation of the zoning administrator is swimming pools require a conditional use permit. You have obtained a conditional use permit for your pool.
I have, but are you saying anyone ever putting a pool in their backyard has to have a conditional use permit for that?
Depends on what they apply for, but yes, that's how I would read it. And they can take that and appeal that to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
So it also says basketball court. So if I put a basketball hoop in my driveway, do I have to have a conditional use permit for that?
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm done in
Yeah,
the debate
that's,
with the applicant at this point. If she has particular questions, she can put them in writing and we'd be happy to
Okay.
provide an answer. But at this point, we're just trying to.
all we're
schedule a
trying to do
public
now
hearing.
is to get this to go forward, so
That's fine.
that's all we're trying to do. All right,
Okay.
thank you.
I'd like to make a motion.
Please,
I'd like to make a motion that the planning commission schedule a public hearing on February 1st for a conditional use permit for accessory dwelling unit at 520 Randolph.
Second.
okay, we have a motion and a second for a conditional use permit for an accessory dwelling unit at 520 Randolph. Any discussion?
Well, Matt, I just want to make one quick point. It's probably semantic, but I've heard of accessory dwelling units and all. The word apartment hasn't appeared before, and it appears in a couple places. That's just a synonym for dwelling or unit, right?
And that may be because of how it was referenced by the applicant. It's not necessarily the terms we use in our zoning ordinance. We call them
Okay.
accessory dwelling units.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Any report of officers and committees. Standing staff reports.
I do have a few items to report. It was in the December activity report. For the subdivision agent, the Village J subdivision application in Bay Creek is proceeding forward. What I had informed you about previously was for a preliminary plat. At this point, as a concept plat, and I signed off on that. The preliminary plat has now been filed. I'm in the midst of finishing that review. I hope to have that done by the end of this week. Then the next step coming from them, once that gets approved, will eventually be the final plat coming in. And that will then be an approved, fully approved subdivision. Also, Dreams by the Bay, which I've been keeping you apprised of over the last few months, they finally have now submitted their second revision with all the corrections in at this point. I am still going through the whole revision at this point to ensure they are in full compliance with all of the items I had listed for them to address. And in addition, I am still waiting on the VDOT review of also this resubmission, so that it is now still moving forward.
Katie, is that the one on Washington? It is?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Relative to the Board of Zoning Appeals, we have received an application that would have been for the January calendar, except I've talked with the applicant. They asked us to hold that for 1 month. There have been a slight change of conditions in the applicant's personal circumstances that may alter that application proceeding forward, so we are still trying to work our way through that issue right now. But I wanted to at least apprise you in case it does move forward what is coming. And specifically, it's at 105 Mason Avenue, seeking a variance to the BZA to allow a first floor dwelling unit in the C1 zoning district, where the ordinance currently requires only second floor dwelling units in the C1 zoning district. So I will keep you apprised if that should not go to hearing to the BZA as to why that might have changed, or if it does proceed forward, that's probably something we're going to want to have some conversation about down the road, because it would eventually have to come back before this body and then on to the town council, because a conditional use permit would be required for that type of use.
I thought when this first came to us, the whole idea was because of the age of the potential resident that would live there, that's why it was mainly a first floor
That is
request
part of
versus a
the-
second floor, yeah.
The argument being made by the applicant. As I said, personal circumstances have changed over
Yeah.
that situation.
Right,
So I can't say with certainty that she's still looking forward to make this application proceed.
got it.
I think she is, but I still want to have some further conversation with her, because as I've made clear, I'm not sure from a zoning administrative perspective that I would support this at the BZA level.
Yeah.
Moving on, just to keep you apprised and informed, our consulting contract was awarded through the town council on December 16th to award the contract for the comprehensive plan and zoning updates to Summit Design and Engineering Services. I have, through the staff report, included both the link to the contract award and the original RFP that went out that defined the entire scope of work, just so you had it in your possession. In terms of where this now goes, now that we've signed the contract, we are supposed to be planning a kickoff meeting. It would have been this month. From a staff perspective, we asked for a slight delay in that just because there's a lot going on in our workload, both for ourselves as well as town council, and they very much want to be a part of this. So we will be planning that kickoff meeting in the first 2 weeks in February. So if there are any dates in those first 2 weeks in February that you know you cannot or plan on being out of town or unavailable, please let me know so I can coordinate that with Mr. Hosey and schedule the date accordingly. And then finally, we want to make sure that we're doing one more look on our website, that we have all the right versions of the draft chapters you have been working on. So if you can make sure, if you wouldn't mind, each of you kind of looking and taking ownership of your chapter and going to the town website under the comprehensive plan and make sure it's the most recent version that we should have in our possession. And then finally, I wanted to give you the update on the other contract that has been in progress for some time now, which is the Historic District Overlay Zoning Ordinance and Historic District Guidelines. That contract is with the firm of Commonwealth Preservation Group. They have been diligently working over the last few months on this, have provided several versions of documents out to the smaller subcommittee that has been reviewing these things to get a quick turnaround out to them. Nothing has been a final chapter of anything. These have really been concepts of what the table of contents would be to make sure we've got the right structure being set up for the guidelines. And some of the additional graphic work, they've given us 1 or 2 templates to make sure we're okay with the graphical presentation of some of this information. So with that said, they also sent out a survey through the utility bills last month. I can't remember exactly which month it was. And they want to be able to now come back to the town and provide us an update on those survey results of what people think and have an impression of the historic district and its relationship to the town as a whole. So we are looking for what we're going to call a town hall meeting. I think it's going to be scheduled for Thursday, January 27th. I haven't heard any change to that date. So I think that one is now confirmed. So we wanted to make sure you get that on your calendar. Of course, it'll be on the Historic District Board's calendar as well for their participation. It'll be a town hall meeting here in this building, really to start to hear a presentation from Commonwealth Preservation Group. And by that point, we will have real draft versions of the whole documents at that point coming into the town staff. And the reason I'm apprising you of this, because eventually this product will be moving in your direction for any zoning amendment changes that might be proposed as part of their work product to Article 8, which is the Historic District Overlay District. So we want to keep you informed and educated along the way and hopefully participating as much as you would care to, so that we maybe have less prep work to do when that comes forward with some zoning amendments in your direction.
At the town hall meeting, if citizens ask questions, will they get answers?
I believe so. I believe the structure of it is the mayor will run the meeting, will recognize and receive questions. The Commonwealth Preservation Group will make a presentation at the beginning of the meeting, and then, of course, we'll be there to answer questions.
Okay,
and
so they
offer-
will be answering questions?
Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
And I think that covers my report. I did want to give you an update. Well, I listed it as item B as an annual report for 2020 and 2021 for the Planning Commission. I have now finished it. It took a little bit longer because I have restructured your annual report. Well, I know you may not remember what your old ones look like.
What do you mean?
They-
Of course we do.
I'm not saying that they weren't useful and helpful. I just felt they could be a little better for a better document for the department as a whole, for you as a whole, and for the town council. It's probably going to be quite of a lengthy document because I'm creating several appendices that track every zoning text change that you had over the last 2 years and the specifics of those zoning text changes. Same with zoning map amendments, as well as conditional use permit listings of things. So we're trying to make this a more robust and informative document, showing not only what your actions were, but also what town council actions were, so that we know when things truly got approved or were passed along and not approved. There's just a little bit of formatting and links that I was struggling with, so Tracy's going to take over for me now because I've hit the limit of my technical experience in the computer world, and she's going to try and fix that. So I think we're going to have that rolled out to you by your work session. We're going to give you your annual report and have you look at that, and hopefully it's in a format you find acceptable and represents what happened over the last 2 years of work that has flown through this department.
Let me just reiterate something I thought I heard, and make sure I heard it correctly. You're looking for us to give you our block dates for the month of February?
In the first 2
Provide us
weeks.
input to make sure that whatever you work with
Right.
John will work. Okay, got it,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah, so if you know you're gonna be out of town, or there's a date that you have a standing meeting that is always on that night or something, let me know, and we'll do our best to work around that,
Okay.
okay?
I know I won't be here the first week.
Say that again?
I will not be here the first week. I'm at a national B&B conference.
Okay.
I won't be here the 7th through the 14th, actually the 21st.
Diane out?
And Katie, I may be out 7/11 February.
7?
7 to the 11th. That week is
7
from
to the
7
11th.
to the 11th.
Michael out. Okay. Jim is the first week out. Anybody else?
I'm out the evening of the 18th.
February 18th. Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay.
All right, announcements. We have our work session on the 24th from 3 to 5 p.m. here in the Civic Center. And the subject is accessory dwelling units.
Yes.
Ah, okay.
And if we have time, rentals. Any-
I have a question about that. At the last meeting, you all asked me to add some things to my portion. Do you want me to have that for that meeting, or you just gonna let me go with it?
I think that needs to get finished and given to Tracy or Katie so it can get onto the website. So that's good enough. We haven't
Okay.
come back with, we
Okay.
haven't come back after everybody's done their thing. They've gotten their marching orders and gone forth and done great, wonderful things.
Okay.
Okay,
Yes.
any other questions? Any other comments?
The Historic District Review Board is now meeting at 3 o'clock in the afternoon instead of 6 in the evening on its regular meetings. I don't know if
Just for this month so far. We haven't made a
it's not,
further
hasn't,
commitment
okay,
beyond
just a
that.
temporary thing, okay.
Yes. So we've recognized with the things getting dark out here, we're gonna try and convene a little earlier, and that seems to work for everybody. So at least for the month of January, we're gonna start at 3 p.m. this month.
Okay.
And we're gonna discuss if we want to alter our calendar on some sort of seasonal calendar timeframe.
It wasn't about the daylight, okay.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?